Hello, and as we actually continue to massively go up, yes, we did reach 123, and yes, we are back down to 119. I personally don't find that all that concerning. And that's really because, that could just be like a temporary retrace. But what I do find concerning is that CPI is coming out tomorrow. We could have actually already hit a top. I think the big whales that actually put a lot of money on Binance did a very, very good job of strategically buying and selling this crypto week that Congress has announced. But if you actually read the details in the crypto week, they're actually hoping to get something passed before the August recess. So I don't think anything's actually going to happen this week. And I think people might be disappointed, and therefore crypto might actually take a turn for the lower prices starting Wednesday or so. Obviously, CPI, as I mentioned, does come out tomorrow. Depending on which sources you're reading, they say core CPI is printed at 2.7, and then overall CPI looks about 2.6. So I think if it comes out and it's above 2.6, 2.7, I definitely think we're going to turn downward. If it's right on target at 2.6, 2.7, I think we're going to slowly go downward. But if it's actually below that, we might go for a pump before turning downward a little bit. I do think there's going to be a lot of buying the rumor and selling the news. I mean, $31 billion worth of stablecoins at Binance is no joke. Obviously, they were going to plan to pump it up. And you realize, it was pumping Thursday and Friday and into the weekend. It's kind of hit a top today. We'll see if it continues to pump tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if it pumps until the CPI tomorrow. And based on the CPI, it might pump more or it might start coming down. I think by Wednesday, Thursday, some of that euphoria, that excitement's going to wear off because I don't think any of these bills are actually going to get passed. Like I said, they're hoping to pass some before the August recess, but they might not actually get that through, and they might have to come back and get that during the next congressional session, and that will actually be a delay. So Trump's also trying to fire Jerome Powell. He's obviously using the Fed office renovations, trying to make up an excuse, but I think everyone sees that as an excuse for what it is, and he's not going to be very successful in pressuring Jerome Powell because Jerome Powell at this point doesn't really care. The stock markets first today, they did actually react to Trump's August 1st tariffs, but then they recovered because Wall Street bettors are saying that Trump is just going to taco out before August 1st, and he's going to either adjust the rates to be much lower or he's going to try to negotiate some rates. My guess is there's not going to be too much negotiation, and he will probably lower the rates or extend the deadline again, even though he said he wouldn't, because he knows that would be bad for the economy and cause the markets to actually drop at this point. So definitely something to look forward to, see if he actually makes any kind of deals or he negotiates these rates down by August 1st. The EU does not seem like they want to work with him much because, contracts signed with him really aren't worth anything anyways. He can just break them at, realistically any time. So they might just implement countermeasures, and that would actually bring down the price of the market, although people will think that there will be some kind of resolution before then. And I certainly hope there's some kind of resolution before then. But despite the market looking maybe for a downturn at the end of this week, there is some good news. And it comes from Michael, the MVP Sailor. He says he's going to start buying Bitcoin again. He last bought Bitcoin on June 30th. He took 1 week break because I think Saylor did run out of money, but he did actually announce that he did raise $4.2 billion to buy more Bitcoin. So we can see more Bitcoin from MicroStrategy in the future. And before last week, he did actually buy 12 consecutive weeks of BTC accumulation. And MicroStrategy is up to the number of 597,325 Bitcoin, valued at $70.9 billion. The shares of the company are trading hands at about $434 and are up over 16% this month, but they still trail the all-time high of $543 per share hit in November 2024. Now, technically they should be higher than November 2024, but because we did hit a new all-time high. Bitcoin treasury companies are now major players in the Bitcoin market, scooping up BTC at a faster rate than it is mined. This demand could cause a supply shock and drive prices higher, though some analysts warn the debt-fueled institutional Bitcoin buying is unsustainable and could trigger a systematic market downturn. And of course, Michael Saylor having that much Bitcoin, you would be kind of right if you were afraid that that was going to trigger a downturn sometime and if he was going to get liquidated. He's not going to actually get liquidated. The only time he can do so is a small period in 2017. But if that were to happen, the entire crypto market would massively plummet. But right now, we also have other good news that Bitcoin treasury companies are vastly outstripping newly mined supply, leading to an overall bump in Bitcoin demand. Bitcoin treasury companies bought 159,107 Bitcoin in Q2, and that was led by MicroStrategy, which is the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin, according to Bitcoin treasury shares. Basically, you have public companies holding some, ETFs, other funds holding some, exchanges, custodians, DeFi smart contracts, private companies, governments holding some. But there's about 3.5 million Bitcoin in institutional treasuries, which include public companies, private enterprises, crypto firms, government orgs, pension funds, and asset managers. Data from the site shows. And that's 3.5 times as much as Satoshi Nakamoto. So you can see like the massive amounts of corporate interest that's actually in crypto right now. And of course, we have Strategy doing a synthetic halving because they're buying up so much Bitcoin. So if we actually look at this mining chart versus buying chart, you can see like how much additional demand it's generating. Miners collectively produce around 450 Bitcoin per day, or about 13,500 Bitcoin a month, while Strategy accumulated 397,800 Bitcoin in 6 months. Obviously, that's almost a 30-to-1 ratio of like how much Strategy is buying versus how much is actually being produced. And they're accumulating about 2,087 Bitcoin per day, far outpacing miners. You take into account the other guys that are actually buying, and you can see like the institutions are massively buying the miners. And of course, Strategy is going to have to buy at much higher prices now, but they just raised $4 billion more to buy more Bitcoin. So I think we can see like at least Michael Saylor offsetting the sales for the foreseeable future. So summer might actually be pretty good for Bitcoin. Hopefully it's good for altcoins, but there's going to be a lot of back and forth. And I do think there is going to be a little bit of sell the news come later this week. In terms of crypto regulations, there is a bit of a holdup with the Genius Act because they want to attach new amendments to it. One of them is with the dictator stablecoin amendment on the table. I think this one is very important, but it might get vetoed if they add this because this affects Donald Trump and his USD1. So obviously they want to add a couple of amendments to the Genius Bill. One of them is really good. It's pro-crypto. It would actually enshrine the right for people to self-custody with their own wallets. We definitely want that up. But the other one I think is equally as important, and it was introduced as like the president, the vice president, and Congress can't actually use their name or endorse any crypto coin. They can't, while they're in office, they can't start their own crypto projects, and them and their direct family members cannot endorse any coin. Obviously, you don't want people essentially using money to buy your crypto coin. That money goes in your own pocket, and that buys influence with the president. Now, Justin Sun famously is kind of doing that. He has vowed to buy $100 million worth of Trump coin. I don't think he's buying it for a long-term investment. He is obviously buying it to garner favor and garner influence with the Trump administration. And obviously it's paying dividends because Eric Trump and Don Jr. did actually help Justin Sun do his reverse IPO on Tron. And now Tron is a public company. Without going through all of that, they were actually involved in that. So it's definitely paying out for him. So I do think crypto, on a political level, does actually need some safeguards to not make it super, super easy for other people to just buy a president endorsed coin or a congressman endorsed coin and basically stuff money into their own pockets. At least with lobbies, the money that they actually give you goes to the political action committee, and it's generally spent with campaigns. Obviously, you get perks too, travel benefits and all that stuff. But this is essentially with crypto, it's essentially stuffing money into the politician's own pocket. And right now, there's nothing stopping that. So I do hope that both these amendments actually get passed. Both the congressman, the vice president, and the president can't use their name to actually endorse a crypto project or start a crypto project, them or their immediate family, while they're in office. And I think this one might actually get vetoed because obviously World Liberty Financial USD1s run by Eric and Don Jr. and they're Trump's sons. And of course, we want the ability to custody our own coins. So I hope these two actual amendments pass. And I don't know if they're going to have to pass to actually get it signed, but I think they're going to debate for quite a while. And that's why I'm pretty sure nothing's actually going to get done in terms of like this particular week on these bills. So people might actually be very, very disappointed that no bills got passed, but I wouldn't be so disappointed. Let's see if anything gets done by the beginning of August, because I think like as long as it doesn't hurt his own interests, Trump will actually sign these bills into law as soon as they're actually passed. So hopefully we get some action and people don't get too disappointed. Otherwise, there will be a sell-off, especially combined with CPIs that might be a little higher than expected. In other news, Grayscale wants to IPO with the SEC. I do think Circle's IPO has gotten the kind of the greed ticker in everyone's mind to want to IPO now, because obviously Circle's IPO was extremely successful and it went several times higher than its projected value. So now Grayscale has submitted a confidential IPO filing with the SEC. Cryptocurrency focused asset manager and exchange-traded fund ETF issuer Grayscale joined a growing list of crypto companies seeking to launch IPOs in the United States. On Monday, Grayscale said it had filed to list its company shares with SEC under a new clause that enables confidential filings ahead of a final public offering. So Grayscale obviously wants the funding. They want the money. I think they'll do pretty well with the IPO. There's a lot of people just dying to invest in crypto opportunities. Grayscale's filing comes over a month after Circle, the issuer of the world's second largest stablecoin in USDC, upsized its IPO to over $1.05 billion and debuted on the New York Stock Exchange on June 5th. Right now, like Circle is looking to raise a lot. Not Circle, like Grayscale's looking to raise a lot of money. Obviously, I think they're going to be able to IPO. So that's actually really, really nice. And I think you're going to see a lot of other crypto companies do this too. Ripple's probably up on the plate, as well as many, many other companies. And in terms of like, the president making money and like, exchanges are going to be very friendly towards the president when he actually wants to make money off his crypto, which is another problem because they can garner influence in that way as well. But there's another reason, and that other reason is because they're going to make a lot of profit off these coins. Trump meme coin made $172 million for crypto exchanges just off trading fees and volume. So like Coinbase waited one whole day after Trump coin debuted before they put Trump coin on their exchange. And obviously they're looking at the volume, they're looking at who's president and who could actually give them favorable treatment, and that's part of the reason they put it on. So crypto exchanges listed the Trump meme coin 4 days after its launch on average, compared to 129 days for other major meme coins. Obviously being president and publicly endorsing the coin has an effect on exchanges. U.S. President Donald Trump's cryptocurrency venture, the official Trump meme coin, has generated multi-million-dollar gains for crypto exchanges, in addition to profits for its creators. Launched just about 6 months ago, the Trump meme coin has generated at least $172 million in trading fees for 10 crypto exchanges, including Binance, Coinbase, OKX, and more, according to Reuters report on Monday. You might not see that as very much. Like, if you look at 10 crypto exchanges, that's an average of $17.2 million per exchange. Obviously, like $17.2 million in 6 months, not very much for these major exchanges, but every cent does help. And when you're like a publicly traded company like Coinbase, any bit of profit helps. And they were the first ones to actually list Trump coin. In listing Trump, some exchanges reportedly disregarded the fact that 80% of the coin supply was held by the Trump family as partners. Details like that aren't going to bother exchanges because they know he's the president. They know the coin's probably not going to completely tank as long as he's around. And they know that it's going to have a lot of trading fees, mainly because, of his name brand. And obviously, like some of his supporters are going to want to buy and trade the coin. In terms of like who made money and who lost money, about 45 crypto wallets made about $1.2 billion in profits from Trump trades. The vast majority of the 712,777 wallets lost a collective $4.3 billion. Obviously, whales gain, regular people lose. That's not all that surprising. That's kind of like how all that is. And obviously, Trump coin, like we said, was listed much faster than peers. So this actually goes to show you like how politicians, the president, the vice president, and Congress, once they actually endorse a coin, how fast they can actually generate an ROI from this. And why like people might want to shut this down because of obvious corruption. Obviously, like most exchanges took about 4 days to list Trump. Coinbase reportedly made up its mind in just 1 day. Given the information that was shared publicly, we were confident that users would engage with the token positively and safely. Coinbase Chief Legal Officer Paul Grewal was cited as saying, he also said Coinbase listed the meme coin as an experimental token in a move to indicate that when it comes to certain risks, including price swings. But obviously, Coinbase was obviously after the president's favor, and they were obviously after the money. So, like this is one of the reasons they really, really want to pass that amendment, saying the president, the vice president, and Congress cannot actually use their namesake to actually endorse the coin, them or their immediate families. In other crypto news, OKX has joined Paxos USDG network as a stablecoin push intensifies. Paxos has pretty big stablecoins outside of USDC and USDT. I think they are the biggest. They also have a gold-backed stablecoin. And the USDG stablecoin has a total circulating supply of 356 million. This is one of their smaller ones, and it was launched in 2024 in November. So there are going to be more and more stablecoins coming up. PaxG is one of the bigger names of stablecoins, but I think they're most famous for their gold-backed stablecoin. But crypto exchange OKX has joined the global dollar network. They're going to be trying to push this as well. OKX, I believe, is like the second or third biggest exchange out there. A consortium promoting Paxos, relatively smaller USDG stablecoin, and a move the exchange says could help accelerate adoption of regular US dollar-backed stablecoin. I think the US government is usually going to be basically getting people to buy into US dollar stablecoins. That ensures US dollar global homogeny for the long term. By joining the network, OKX's 60 million global users will gain access to global dollar USDG for trading and transfers. OKX already supports major stablecoins, including market leaders Tether and USDC. Adding USDG, a newer, smaller entrant, could broaden access to regulated digital dollars through a project designed to operate within established regulatory frameworks. So obviously good for USDG, probably pretty good for OKX. There might be like a different partnership in there. And yes, if you are looking at, does OKX have a coin? They do indeed have a coin. I do believe their OKX coin is called like Unisted Leo or something. Keep an eye out for that. All these exchanges are making really, really big moves in the crypto market right now. Like these exchange coins, whether it's like Bitfinex or OKX, CRO, Binance, Coinbase, if they ever get a coin, I think they are definitely worth looking at. There's more solid backing to these coins because there is a big exchange actually backing them. And you can actually have utility on these exchanges for these coins, rather like normal coins. It's just all speculation. With these coins, there's actually like strategy. Also, Circle wants to become America's first digital currency bank, and that's kind of interesting. Obviously, Circle can do a lot more since its IPO now. They've got a lot of money. They got a lot of backing. They can always get more money from investors. So the proposed entity, First National Digital Currency Bank, wouldn't operate like a traditional consumer bank. It wouldn't offer deposits or loans. Instead, it would focus on Circle USDC Trust Bank functions, safeguarding USDC reserves. I think they're going to be a giant custody thing, managing cash and short-term treasury holdings, and offering digital asset custody services to institutional clients. I think the last one's the biggest one. Circle is becoming a serious contender in global finance. In fact, over 62 billion in USDC in circulation is the second largest stablecoin globally. Tether has not IPO'd, but they're much bigger than Circle. Until now, reserve management relied on third-party custodians like BlackRock and BNY Mellon. Basically Ripple's stablecoin does actually rely on BNY Mellon. By pursuing the Circle OCC charter application, Circle aims to internalize control, streamline operations, and minimize risk and strengthen transparency. So basically, like they want to keep the stablecoin custody in the field of digital assets. They don't want to give everything to like BlackRock or banks like BNY Mellon. It also aligns with Circle's current legislation, the Genius Act, passed by the U.S. Senate in June 2025, and now is on the floor of the House. By applying for a federal trust charter, Circle shows it's ready to meet and help define future U.S. standards for digital currency trading. That's very nice. Let's actually look at the graphs for the graphs from TradingView on Bitcoin. If you look at the Bitcoin TradingView graph, obviously, you will see that the MACD is getting more and more positive. That's a very good thing. You will also see that the 50 MA is crawling higher and higher above the 200 MA. And that's also a very good thing. The signals look very, very positive. Let me just bring up the chart right now. The signals do indeed look extremely positive. If you look at that, we had a big surge, and now the 50 and 200 MA are, I think they're growing farther apart, especially in the short term. And you see the MACD, we finally leapt up. We really haven't had an MACD like this one for several months. The last time was actually at the end of April. And that was when we were surging back from $76,000 to about $100,000. So that signals further growth in that way. Obviously, we had another leg up like this in November. And that's when we really went up to, $109,000. So the signals are very good. But like I said, I'm afraid of buy the rumor, sell the news at this point. And if you look at Bitcoin liquidations on CoinGlass, I think there's more long liquidations than short liquidations, which does actually bother me just a little bit. Not a huge amount, but a little bit. That means the price is easier to fall than rise. They've been like this for a while, especially on the longer time periods. They are readjusting. But they've definitely been like this for a while, where there's way more long liquidations than short liquidations, especially on the 7-day and the 30-day. The 1-day is a lot more even, but even with that, on the 1-day, I think there's more long liquidations than short liquidations. So if it is a case of buy the rumor, sell the news, especially if the CPI number is bad tomorrow, we could go down very, very quickly. I think the potential to go down to 114 is pretty big. And some people are still, I would say some people are still targeting maybe even lower than that, potentially something like 104, 105, which is definitely possible because that's where we were before all this started, especially if some of that Binance money really starts to pull back. So I would actually be careful with this right now. If you're doing leverage on Bitcoin, like 3x or something, I would take a little bit of profit. If you're doing some of the altcoins, I would take a little bit of the profit because you know how it can be devastating if Bitcoin starts to pull back like it has in the past after these rises. There is a lot of momentum right now, once again, on both the MACD and the 50 and the 200 EMA stuff. But remember, crypto week is finally getting underway. There's buy the rumor, sell the news. Midweek, if these bills look like they're not going to pass this week, which they're not, by the way, and people start getting disappointed if the CPI is bad, we could definitely go down 10, 15,000 points, and that wouldn't be all that surprising. And if you are actually leveraged 2 to 3x, you would be losing on 30% profits if you didn't take some profits right now. So I would take a little bit of profit right now, not too much, just a little bit right now, and you might be able to buy in for much, much cheaper down the line. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.